The average grocery store today has about 40,000 individual items, up from about 200 at the dawn of the 20th century. The humble grocery is a technological marvel that enables me to source nearly anything I need from anywhere, anytime I feel the need to experiment with some new wild-ass crazy cuisine combo. The inputs are hardly ever out of stock and are almost always available at prices that are not prohibitive. It isn't simply availability and low cost. It's reliable availability and reliably low cost. Take this concept of utter availability and apply it to absolutely everything, and you now have a glimmer of the absolute connectivity that underpins the modern globalized economy. The ingredients of today's industrial and consumer goods are only available because they can be moved from literally halfway around the world at low costs and high speeds and in perfect security. Fertilizers, oil, cherries, propylene, single malt whiskey, you name it, it is in motion all the time. Transportation is the ultimate enabler. Most technologies do not fundamentally change us. Consider the contemporary smartphone. It's a flashlight, a music player, a camera, a game console, a fare card, a remote control, a library, a television, a cookbook, a computer. All in one. It hasn't enabled us to do much that's fundamentally new, but it has combined more than a dozen pre-existing devices into one, increasing efficiency and access. Important? Ridiculously. But such improvement-based techs do not fundamentally change who we are. Transport technologies, on the other hand, profoundly alter our relationship with our geography. Today you can jump continents in a few hours. It wasn't always this way. In fact, it was almost never this way. Until a couple hundred years ago, it was rare for any of us to venture more than a few miles from home. The 6 millennia of human history has quite literally been a slow, agonizing crawl along a long, long road. Understand the evolutions and revolutions and how we've traveled from A to B. Understand the connectivity that has made our modern grocery stores and smartphones possible. And you can understand why our world is shaped the way it is, and what wonders and terrors the coming decades will hold for us all. The human body is a frail and ridiculously inefficient form of transporting goods. Imagine you are any random human, from the time of our first emergence as Homo sapiens to about the mid-1700s. Unfortunately for you, your legs are likely your only means of transportation. Wheelbarrows did not become a big deal until about 100 CE. Carts were too expensive for the average peasant until centuries later, even if there were roads to drag them upon. Even waiting around for something as old school as a bicycle would have kept you twiddling your thumbs until the late 18th century, mid-19th if you wanted pedals. There are good reasons traders still use camels even today. For most people, your life, your town, and your livelihood were circumscribed by how far you were willing to walk in a day with a crushing load on your back. That kept towns small. Before industrial techs remade the world, urban areas required nearly a half an acre of farmland per resident to prevent starvation. Over 7 times the land we use today, plus another 100 times as much area in forest land to produce charcoal to cook and see the population through winter. It made cities stay small, grow too big, and either A, food must come from too far away, in other words, you starve, or B, you cut down your forest to grow more food locally, and the cutting-edge technology of the day, fire, is denied you. You starve while also freezing to death. Wheels helped, but not as much as you might think. I'm sure you've all heard about Rome's famous roads being one of the greatest achievements of the pre-modern age. Rome's roads stretched from Glasgow to Marrakesh to Baghdad to Odessa, and were roughly equivalent in total length to the roads of modern-day Maine. The Roman road network took 6 centuries, 1 billion labor days to construct, to say nothing of maintenance. The very concept of trade was dubious. You couldn't call ahead to see if the next town over actually needed what you had to sell. And then there's the problem of spoilage. You simply couldn't carry enough food to make long-distance trade viable for anything but the most valuable items. Concrete and asphalt, chemical preservatives and refrigeration are only a few of those pesky industrial-era technologies that didn't come around until the 1800s. Efficient, regular, overland transport for bulk goods, even over relatively short distances, was not just difficult, but also economically impossible for just about all of human history. Even bread baskets could not reliably feed themselves. Between 1500 and 1778, France suffered several national famines and dozens of regional famines. The country that has been Europe's largest and most reliable food producer stretching back a millennium, the country that has 3 separate agricultural regions, the country that had, bar none, the best internal transport system of the pre-industrial world. Moving things overland sucks. So we figured out how to move stuff a different way. We figured out how to float. While a camel could move a quarter ton, and ox-drawn carts around a ton, even the earliest bulk ships could move several hundred tons at the fraction of a price per ton. The Romans famously imported most of their capital's food from Egypt. Remember those better-than-world-class Roman roads? In 300 CE, it cost more to move grain 70 miles on those roads than it did to sail it some 1,400 miles from Egypt to Rome. The economics of water transport were so lopsided that some cultures, see government, Dutch, Aztec, Chinese, would rearrange their entire governing systems around the capacity to mobilize labor to dig canals stretching hundreds of miles through rocky, undulating landscapes with little more than stone picks, all to float what was the pinnacle of human transport technology well into the 2nd millennium CE, the lowly barge. By the 14th century, history finally started picking up speed. Sails and nails, oars and rudders, holds and decks, guns and artillery, compasses and astrolabes. And